You're listening to Operant Innovations, a podcast brought to you by ABA Technologies. This month on Thought Leaders, we're speaking with Dr. Jesus Rosales-Ruiz as he tells us his journey into the field of behavior analysis.
So I'm probably going to start in high school.
Okay.
Yeah, because that was the that's the that was the pivotal moment for me. When I was in high school, when I finished high school, so I had to decide what career to go next. Yeah. And of course, my father wanted me to be a physician, and my mother wanted me to be an engineer. And at that time, I could have gone to any of those. Another possibility was law. The in Mexico they say like every family has to have a lawyer, a physician, and a priest in the family. See, those are the essential components. But anyway, I didn't want to go to any of that because you know, I could have gone to be a doctor or a physician, but I look at my prerequisites, or the amount of the amount of time that I will have to catch up, because in my high school, especially my second year, since school was so easy for me, then I really didn't apply myself. So, but then I noticed, oh my God, so I need these prerequisites really to pass the exam to be accepted in the school, in medical school, or to be accepted in engineering. But anyway, my heart wasn't really there. The At that time when I graduated, or in my last year of high school, they opened at the university psychology. They didn't have psychology. So I decided, so I was looking at what I wanted to do, my skills. And so I thought that psychology was going to be a good choice because, I wanted to do something with humans. And but also to me it looked like psychology was going to be like it started all over again, because to me it looked like so distance from what I was doing, because I was saying, well, you don't need math, you don't need biology, you don't need any of those things. That's what I thought that at those times. So I decided in psychology. Actually, I went to the university, the Autonomous University of San Luis Potosí, and I'm really the second generation of the psychology school. When I entered, so when I was in my last year, there was the first cohort, and I was the second cohort. Really, me and my classmates were the second cohort. So I'm talking about 1974, 1975. And interestingly, in the 70s, behavioral analysis was the thing to do in Mexico. It was super, super, super popular. A lot of people were doing behavioral analysis, and of course, very controversial, at least in terms of philosophy. So I didn't know. So since it was very popular at the time, so it was let's put it this way, like it was the fashionable discipline at the time. The persons who designed, they hired two persons from the Autonomous University of Mexico to come and help and design the psychology school, to come to university to be advisors and all of that. So one of those advisors was Emilio Rivers. Emilio Rivers is a very influential behavior analyst. Actually, he's an interbehaviorist, probably. He will call himself an interbehaviorist in Mexico. So they designed, so to my surprise, so to my surprise, the whole school was designed behaviorally. It was like a behavioral school, basically. It was not psychology. And this was interesting to me because, once that I decided to study, to go into psychology, all my aunts and my parents started getting me books so I can read during the summer about Freud, Carl Jung, Adler. No, so I was like really top into psychoanalysis. I was ready to that, you know. So I enrolled, and I remember my first class very clearly. Well, my first class in college, so the first class was the topic, or the name of the class was General Psychology. And the textbook was Science and Human Behavior from Skinner, so I didn't know. So
Wow.
my very first class, I go into it, and so there is the professor there, and it writes the Greek symbol for psychology. And then he asked the class, so what does this mean? Say, oh, and everybody, oh, that's the psych, that's the study of the soul. And say, okay, let me tell you something. We don't have a soul. I say, what? I don't have a soul. I don't believe it. This is not good. And they start talking about science and human behavior, and me like, I was totally shocked. And partly because how the professor, of course, introduced this notion. So it took me like 2 or 3 months of my career, in college, to really accept behavior analysis, to really accept a naturalistic point of view of behavior. I
That's
was
so interesting though, because we hear so many stories about people going, when they found behavior analysis, it was just like this light bulb that went off in their head, and they're like, oh yes, we have to be I have to do this. So
yes,
to actually hear from you that no, it wasn't necessarily like, oh, what have I been doing? No, I have to go do this. You actually took some time to really accept it.
yeah. Well, they told me that I didn't have a soul. What do you mean? I don't have a soul or free will, and none of that existed. I say, wait a minute, that's not true. I do have a soul, and I do have free will. You know. So that makes it for a very interesting discussions with our classmates, in class, with everybody. And actually, that was a really good motivator, because then we form a study group, and I became with some friends, and we start reading a lot about it, because we were all like puzzled. And very good. But so I got over and embraced it, and so I took it. I say, this is the coolest thing ever. And because we also have like Rat Lab and all of that. So that was one of my favorite things, the Rat Lab and readings. So so the problem was that when they designed, or one problem was that when they designed the degree, they only designed the first 2 years. And that was easy, because everybody was into the experimental analysis of behavior, and people were doing, at least in Mexico, they were doing experiments with how to say with pigeons, rats, and all of that. So a lot of people knew what to do that, but apply behavior analysis, very few, very, very, very few. So the career, my college career was these 2 years of just basic principles, and labs and all that. And that's when I was disillusioned. Oh my God, I need to study physiology too, and math and statistics. I was, oh my, okay. But anyway, I did it. But so you have the 2 years of the foundations. And then after 2 years, you go and choose a specialty. And the two specialty was either to go into clinical or to education. Okay. So, but there were nothing because people, there were not very many people knew on applied behavior, how to do applied behavior analysis, And so they hire two persons from the University of Kansas, two master students, one Mexican and one an American. They hired them at the university to come and start a laboratory for us, like a lab that we name, or they name, Wonderland. And so there, what we have is children with developmental disabilities, which I was very interested by that time. I was interested. I thought that I was gonna that my field was gonna be with children with mental retardations or developmental disabilities, and train them and parent training of that. By that time, I was interested in that. So we were that, and then the other part, that was the clinical part. It was not under the special ed. So then in Mexico, there was the clinical part. Of course, there was also options to do with adults, But again, the opportunity, everything was growing and the opportunities just was happening. Then in that lab, for these two persons, whose names are Fernando Sarmiento and Bonnie Miller, then the other part, so they came and they did the clinical part, that clinical, but in the same lab school, we have educational, and was basically, school for first graders, but most of our clients were young adults in Mexico that they have never gone to school, that they were mainly culturally deprived. And so teach them how to read and do math and things like that, So that was the laboratory that they came and built. But since they needed manpower too, because this was a school and we had maybe 30 students with developmental disabilities and 50 children, that were culturally deprived of that. So they needed personnel for this new lab. The university gave us the facilities, and the Mexican army basically gave us the desk, file cabinets, all kinds of things that they donated. And also some rich people in San Luis Potosí, they were very excited about, because there were almost no services like that for children. Okay, so they needed people to be full-time there. And so they make a deal with us. Anyone could do it. So they call us, hey, we're opening this. I was more connected because by that time, because one of my professors, the influence of one of my professors, I knew how to read English a lot. So I could read, it took me a long time, but I could read articles. I could translate them, and more or less, And this professor, that one of the professors that came from the University of Kansas, she didn't speak any Spanish. Okay, so she was relying on. So she learned to speak Spanish on the go, and so she needed people, to support it, translate it, and then for her to choose the articles and for us to translate it and all kinds of things. So we really had to be there full time. So we didn't have time to really to go to classes. So the deal that they offer us is say you can come and work full time in this lab, and if you do that, you don't have to go to class. All what you have to do is pass the exams. All the professors are gonna tell you what is the material. You study it on your own, and you just show up whenever there is a test. So, like 5 of us accepted that. Say, and other people say no, that's too much. So they were part time, but the 5 of us say yes, that sounds like a good thing because we're gonna be learning directly from these guys, and we were interested in applied behavior analysis and all that. So my last 2 years of college in psychology, I didn't go to school. I spent 24 hours in the lab, and they were awesome 24 hours because not only we were discussing current articles in Java on stimulus control, but we also were dealing with or being able to apply all of these things every day and help children. So to
Well,
me,
and clearly you passed too.
yeah,
So
yes, I passed this. Yeah, the tests they were not that hard because it was just like any other test, They are just more concerned with the content than anything else. And so um, my first, I learned there a lot because I remember my first case that they assigned me. I mean, we'll set up basically the lab school. The students from psychology will come. We will have these children, and they will have practicum. So we will teach them how to run a discrete trial program for children with developmental disabilities. A little bit of program instruction and programming, and of course, in the educational part, we have, reading, math, and all of that. But to me, somebody, well, Bonnie Miller, so I was working more closely with Bonnie Miller. And she had a study in KU under Barbara Etzel. So she knew a lot of stimulus control and programming in the children, which was wonderful because, we all were fascinated by that, like reading terras, like errorless learning and that. And I remember Bonnie, she will always get mad because we will mispronounce the name. Now I'm sort of saying it correctly, but before we were just mispronouncing everything. And got into discussions. Okay, how can you translate prompt into Spanish? And no, so it was very enriching. But Bonnie gave me my first challenge. There was a girl there that was 12 years old when she got there, that basically she looked like a vegetable. Vegetable in the sense that you will put her in the chair and he will be in the chair just staring, and like she was not interested in anything. So she was the daughter of one of the donors on there, so that's why they asked me, what, let's pay more attention to Christy. That was her name. I say to accelerate this, to keep the parents happy because they were donating a lot of money and they were benefiting all kinds of children. So I say, so okay, Jesus, you're gonna teach her generalized imitation. And I was like, what? But she doesn't even move. So I tried all kinds of things. Some of them not so good. Once, and I regret this, I say, no, if she gets really hot, she's gonna move. She's gonna have to move because. So I took her chair out and I put it in the patio, and the song was there. So I left her there, and I was checking on her and say, she's gonna get hot or something. She's gonna react. Well, she didn't react. So I said, no, this is not good. So I was wondering all the time. I don't have any reinforcers. I don't have anything that she wants. And then at that time, so the students were coming, and at that time we didn't have iPods or nothing like that, but we had transistor radios and small ones. And some of the students, and they like that because the university's radio was really good in classical music. So if you wanted to hear classical music, or if you were into classical music, a transistor radio was really cool. Of course, not the same quality, but you had a transistor radio there while
It's
you were
better than
walking.
nothing.
Yes, better than nothing. So one day I was with Christy trying to move it, and I was with Christy there, and then one student passed by and he was listening to the transistor radio classical music. And that was the first time that I saw her turn her head to the guy. I say, what? I got a reinforcer. So now I brought a transistor radio. So I was like putting in her ear, and she tried to grab it and take it from me and put it in the ear. I said, awesome. This is awesome. So with that, I trained her to imitate by using a transistor radio to do that. And also the other thing that I did, I trained her to identify her parents on pictures. And the parents were like, they were beside themselves when I will say, where is your dad, Christy? And she will point to her dad. Where is your mom, Christy? And she will point to the picture of her mom. They were like, the mom almost cried because they were like totally taken by that. Me too. I was like blown away by the experience. Like, oh my God, I was there. So I was really into it. And then unfortunately, Bonnie and Fernando, they only stay with us like 2 years, and then they moved to a technological institute because, program instruction at that time was like really hot in Mexico, especially in the technological institutes. One of the most famous technological institutes in Mexico, which is the Monterrey Technological Institute. They say, and people say, that every single class in the first year of engineers or whatever business you want, it was all program instruction, all of it. And say, no way, Jose. So anyway, so they went to a technological institute run by the federal government, and then they went there. There were some politics, there were some politics to the university because they were attracting huge amounts of people, because students, because everybody was hungry. Okay, show me how I can deal with these children or do sessions and all of that. Okay, so they left, and so these five students that decided not to, we haven't even graduated, you know. We were in our sort of like last years, and so they left us there to run the whole lab. Of course, supervised by a professor, because the other professors they didn't know how to run it or how to, and we knew how to do it, and so we have a professor there, so we were running it, and all of us decided it was decided to do our master our thesis there. So we were doing our thesis and the last year and running this and all of that, and so so we did our thesis and graduated. Bonnie and Fernando came because they were advising us into the thesis and all of that, and we did awesome thesis. You know, mine. I think that I can still publish mine, even though I did a long time ago. It's about, at that time, one article that caught my attention that I read is one article by Catania showing that choice was a reinforcer for pigeons. The pigeons will prefer to choose than not to choose. So that was my thesis about because we have a token economy that we were doing, and it was pain on the butt. Like at that time, you have to calculate the prices in the hierarchy, which ones higher than the other, and we're doing preference assessments all the time. And I say, God, this is so cumbersome. Until I say, why don't we let them choose? before we go to before we go the session, we stop by the store, the reinforcer store. They pick whatever they want, and okay, now you're gonna work for this. And so that was so my thesis was to show like what would be the effect of therapies would let children choose their own resources, or therapies that will assign the preferred reinforcer anyway to the child, that the child will be working for it, but don't let them choose. Like just derive through preference assessments which one was the top. They will use that and go and run the session. And the other ones, just right before the running the session, they will stop by this store and let them choose whatever they want. What do they will work for it. And we have like three things. Like we have like, say, so if they did 90% correct, they get the first choice. 80 to 90, the second choice, and 70 to whatever, the third choice. So that was my thesis about it. And it was amazing because normal children and children with developmental disabilities, all of them prefer the therapies that allow them to choose. And I reversed it and all of that. So,
well, I love hearing that
doing,
too. And I think it's funny that you said you didn't publish that, because I know that when I was working in clinical years ago, mm-hmm. that was one thing that we used all of the time, was that choice factor mm-hmm. of it as well. So that's phenomenal. I think you should just try to publish that all these years later. Be like, hey, this is what I did back in the day. Here you go. I was way ahead of the time.
Yes, but it grew out of necessity because we were spending so much time in these reinforcement assessments, and once that the child, exactly what they are gonna pick. For a while, anyway, so that was good. So then the five of us stayed there. Then we graduated, and actually they gave us some, the university hired us and all of that. And so we continue providing laboratory experience. So now laboratory experience to the students in psychology. So But, one thing that we start noticing is that in the school, especially with the children with developmental disabilities, in the school, those children were doing incredible things. We have incredible instructional control, and they were in our eyes. We were achieving tremendous behavior change, and we were amazed. But the parents didn't see this in their homes, and so we will invite them to see them, because we had the two-way mirror, so they could see the children actually performing really, really well. But none of that happening in their houses, which was, a little sad for them, because they thought he's so wide, and we tried to explain it. No, behavior is so specific and blah blah. We need to learn about generalization and all of that kind of thing. So then I started to say, I need to know about generalization. I need to. So at that time, or in previous year, I'm talking now like 1979. And then I remember that I have read that that I had Java and Bonnie Miller. I was talking to Bonnie Miller, and Bonnie Miller said, why don't you read Stokes and Baer article on the implicit technology of generalization? So I tried to read it, and I read it, and I immediately thought, I need to go to study under Don Baer. I need to learn about generalization. So I talked to Bonnie and said, Bonnie, this is what we need, and all of that. I need to go to the USA to learn about generalization. So she told me, why don't you write on Baer and explain the problem, who you are, what you're doing, and why are you applying to him? Or why would you want to study with him? So I wrote him a letter to Don Baer, and explaining all of this and telling him that I wanted to, So so he writes back, and he says, you know what? I really like what you're doing. I am accepting students, but I have no funding at all. So if you're gonna come, you're gonna have to pay your own way, maybe your government and all of that. And me, I was, yes, because at that time there was a program, in the 70s, 90s, and a little bit into the 80s. Mexico thought that it was rich because of the oil. They were producing lots of oil and selling off oil. So the National Council of Science and Technology in Mexico have a program to upgrade the faculty of all the universities. So they were offering scholarships to any professor that would want to go and spend some time learning, but with the thing that you have to come back to your university. So in my university, most of them, they were married, and they were, oh no, it's a lot. I mean, even though they were hungry for knowledge, and me, I was single, wanting to learn to generalization, and say, I'll take a scholarship. So I told Don, I would like to come. And so I secured the scholarship. I have this opportunity of the scholarship, so it's very likely that I go. So what do I have to do? And then he told me, okay, before we do anything, I would like to meet you. Why don't you come and for an interview? Yeah. And I say, okay, I should go and have an interview with you. So that was my second time in the USA. It's my first time. Actually, I went to Pennsylvania with my friends, and in some other trip when I was 20 years old. Anyway, so I went and it was like, oh my God, almost trying to memorize stocks and Baer, like the article, the implicit technology, it says, not knowing what. And so he was really gracious. He arranged it for me to stay at the dorm and in the university. So that was really nice of him. But I was all nervous, what is gonna be. I knew I could understand English a lot. I could read. I could even write English. But speaking English was a trouble. Was a problem. I will feel like my throat, intimidated. Like no words will come, just by being probably anxious or nervous or not being so fluent in speaking. Because I didn't have that much opportunity to speak, but to read and write and hear. And the hearing was really good because, I like American bands, so I tried to learn the lyrics, and that in those days the albums, most of them had the lyrics on the back, so I tried to follow along and all of that kind of thing. So, so those things became handy. So anyway, so I went to KU. I had my appointment, and again we were talking. I was talking to Don Baer, and it was very interesting interview because I was saying, and he will ask me, well, Jesus, so why do you want to have a master's degree? What are you gonna do with this knowledge? And I say, Don, I want to go back and continue working in the place that I explained, the lab, because I want to do good. I want to bring the state of the art on treatment for these children with developmental disabilities. And then he will add, and do research. Oh, yeah, do research. And then he will come out. And what else? And I will tell him about my dreams. And he will always say, and do research. And by the third time, like the light bulb came out. Oh, research, that's important too. So this is what is important to do. It's no saving these children. So I got the idea. Okay. So yes, so we need to do research to improve the whatever. Anyway, to make the story short, he accepted me. But he told me, yes, you need a little help with speaking English. So the only requirement that I'm going to put on you is that you come during the summers, you come and take English classes here in the university. So awesome.
Not a bad trade-off.
No. And that's how I end up in Kansas,
Well, it's like, I know that you ended up in Kansas because, that's easy to find. But how you got to Kansas, that is such a neat story.
Yeah, it is. It was incredible. Yes.
And so what about Kansas and then after Kansas?
Then when I got to Kansas, so I was going to solve the problem of generalization. That was my quest. That's what I went to Kansas to get you. And well, I'll tell you about the generalization a little bit later on, but let me back up. So my first thing when I come to Kansas, so I go, like a good student. I remember, like, before the fall semester started, so I needed to pick my classes, and so I went to Don. So, like, really good student, I have, my notebook here to write notes, and also the university catalog in the other hand. So I come to my first meeting and say, okay, Don, I'm here. I'm ready. Which classes should I take? And I was ready to take notes. And then he tells me, well, Jesus, universities are great places. And this is a great, great opportunity for you to grow in many, many ways. This is your chance. You're going to have 2 years of pursuing exactly what you want to do. And I say, so I don't know what is that. So I don't know what to recommend other than tell you, you look over there. That's the philosophy department. Downstairs, the floor below us, that's biochemistry. At the top, we have a special ed. And over there, we have music. I say, so what do you want to do, Jesus? You see, you are in this rich environment here. And I was like, what? Nobody has gave me this freedom, Like, then I said, Don, I got you. I'll come back tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Let me think about it because I wasn't expecting this. So I went and I thought, okay, what classes do I need to take? How am I going to arrange my 2 years here and all of that? And so I came back, the next time. And then so I tell him, Don, I want to take this class. So then he could advise me, say, you know what? You are too greedy here. We'll go step by step. If you take all these classes, you're going to spend your time reading and how about it? You distribute it like this and blah, blah. So we came out with a plan there. And then I was leaving, and then he told me, remember I told you that universities are very rich and there is lots of opportunities? By the way, the music school has awesome concerts. The theater school has awesome plays. You should take advantage of all of that. I say, okay, okay. It's not just the books, it's you need to meet people and see the culture and, say, because I'm telling you, once that you get out of universities, unless you're a professor, it's very difficult to come back. And so I said, oh, very good. Okay, so I started, and I started in a good place because since I was doing already applied behavior analysis, I have a lot of prerequisites. I knew how to build observation systems, design data sheets, and all of that, even a little bit of programming. Okay, so I didn't know that Ogden Lindsley was still there at KU. I actually met Ogden Lindsley in my first ABA. When I went to my first ABA, which was in 1981. When I went to my first ABA, I wanted to meet all these heroes that I was reading about. I wanted to meet Skinner, I wanted to meet Lindsley, I wanted to meet Asrin, I wanted to meet Castin, all Risley, all of those heroes that I was reading about. So, and in those days, ABBA was really small, so it was very easy to find these guys. And they were in the hotels, and it was also small and rich. So I found Ogden Lindsley, and I started talking to him. But I didn't know that. I thought that he was already retired or something. I didn't know where he was. And then he asked me, he said, well, so he thought that I was coming from Mexico to ABBA, and so he didn't realize it. And so we were talking, and he thought that I was interested in the standard oscillation chart and precision teaching, which I was more interested in his work with psychotics and schizophrenics and schedules of reinforcement with humans and things like that. So then he told me, so when are you coming? So then I told him that I was going to KU and that I was in the Department of Human Development. He said, really? I'm in the School of Education, right there. I say, some, really? And I say, okay. I say, can I take classes with you? Can I say, yes, you're enrolled. So from then on, Shona, every semester, well, I took all his classes that he was teaching in the School of Education, but I also signed for something that they call special programs, to do specialized projects. And I met with him almost every week, until he retired. And we wrote an article, or I helped him grow an article. It was really nice for me because at that time he was coming up with a new language to describe behavior change in the standard deviation chart. And that's when he was coming up with the effects like frequency jump, acceleration turns, all those terms, the bounce crease, and all of that. And I was fascinated. We wrote an article that we never published. He published it in the Precision Media that is called meta charting, which basically was a method to summarize large bodies of literature in one chart. And so I was fascinated. Okay, so I met Ogden Lindsley. I was there, so he became basically my second advisor. Okay, so I was doing all of that because, remember, my quest was to come and let's say, and learn as much as I could and solve the problem of generalization. And my idea was to go to the library and read about almost everything that I could about generalization, and especially philosophy, things related to philosophy. Yeah. So, so I told my plan to both to Don and Ogden, and both of them, they literally laugh. They laughed at me. They say, "Oh no, it doesn't work that way," you know. So, and both tell me, say, if you want to understand generalization, really, of course, read whatever it say, but you're not gonna find myself in the library, and say, what you have to do, it is create. You have to learn to create generalization. So try to do research about how would you create generalization. Say, okay. You say, no, say, you're gonna do, and that became the part of research. That's when I start thinking or turning into a way like, okay, I start realizing that, okay, what they wanted, what they wanted me to do is more research. And actually, maybe this might help some future students that listen to this. To me, one discrimination that I made that I thought that was very important and very substantial was to have the realization when I was a KU that the expectations on me, they were very different from what they were in Mexico. In Mexico, they will expect me to read the books. At KU, they were expecting me to write the books. Totally different, same intelligence, same everything. But then I thought, oh my God, this is so different, But just that change in attitude makes you look at things very differently and behave very differently, To borrow a term for me, that learning that discrimination was a cusp for me, because, so now, oh my God, I need to produce knowledge, I need to write about it, which is basically the way that they want to train me, So that was a tremendous lesson for me. So at the beginning, I did a lot of, I work a lot with preschool children, and mainly because the department had a preschool there that we can run experiments. And a lot of what I did was on stimulus control, perception, stimulus equivalence, memory, and things like that. So I was more interested in that because I didn't have access to people with mental retardation. Although every week, in order for me to do that, to have that access, I would have to go to Topeka, Kansas, to the Kansas Neurological Institute, which was, half an hour from Lawrence. What I did, though, is every Monday, Don Baer had a research meeting there, so I would spend all day with him in those meetings and looking at the Kansas Neurological Institute and the kind of problems that they were trying to solve. So it was very enriching because, I had the opportunity of riding with him on the way there and in the way back. So I have a lot of extra time with Don Baer.
Well, to say that
Anyway,
you've had some good advisors is an understatement, for sure.
yes, and the nice thing that both of them, they were just pushing the envelope, to try and say you need to produce knowledge, and you got the attitude. I'll tell you something that really liberated me, an experience that I had with Ogden. So Ogden Lindsley. So okay, so I start doing my research, and so I say, okay, so I need to produce generalization. Then I found an article that Stokes and Baer wrote about generalization of hand waving or something like that, or saying hello with people. So I read that article in Java, and then I found a flaw in the experimental design. So I talked to Don Baer, and I say, Don, I can see the conclusions of this, but the experimental design is flawed. And then he asked me, what do you think? What do you mean this is? And so I pointed out to him what was flawed and what design would really, help to overcome that confound. Don Baer was really, really happy because Don Baer, he was all about logic and experimental design or proof was his thing, so everything that you can improve experimental design or just proof, he was really happy. And he told me, Jesus, this is great idea. This is genius. Awesome. So I wrote the proposal. I show it in my research meetings with Don and the other PhD students. I was a master student. He just not even to a PhD because I got my scholarship was just to do a master's degree there. Okay. So I did it, and then at KU they had the tradition. They used to have the tradition that once that you come out with your thesis or whatever, you have to go to another research group and present your idea on your own, without advice, is nothing. That you go there and defend it and get feedback from them and see what holes do they see and all of that. So I did that, and again, they told me, "Oh, Jesus, this is brilliant. This is awesome. You only have to do it once with another." So by then my head was like huge, like, wow, I'm brilliant and awesome, and everybody likes my research proposal. So to tell you a story short, I exhausted all the research groups at KU. So
Hey,
if
I could have done that, I probably would have too. So
yes,
I
yes.
can't really laugh too much at that because I probably would have done the same thing.
Oh my
Yeah, I was
goodness.
getting this awesome social reinforcement, so I want more, I want more. So anyway, so I exhausted the research groups in the department. So I said, who else, who can I show that I'm brilliant? And I say, Ogden. Okay, so I went with Ogden and I go, hey, Ogden, this is my proposal for my master's thesis. I would like you to read it and giving me your feedback. And then he tells me, sure, why not? And me anxious there, and he was patiently reading, nodding his head, making faces, and me growing more anxious, like, when is he gonna say, Jesus, you're brilliant, And then finally, he puts the paper on his desk. And he looks at me and he says, Jesus, let me ask you, before I tell you anything, let me ask you a question. I say, sure. I say, imagine, that there is this guy walking by the road, and then he sees another guy picking a chicken and trying to milk it, to get milk out of the chicken. And the other guy stops and sees this guy trying to milk a chicken and goes and tells that guy, see, you cannot get, it goes with a guy, tastes the chicken and tries to milk it too. He says, see, milk is not coming out of here. He's trying to show this other guy the milk is not coming out of the chicken. Tell me, Jesus, who's more crazy? The guy who is trying to milk the chicken, or the guy who stops and tries to tell the guy that the milk doesn't come out of chickens? And I say to him, the second one. And then he goes and slaps his hand on the desk. Say, damn it, Jesus. That's what you're trying to do. If you know where to go, if you know where to get the milk, just go and get it and show it to them. Never, ever, ever try to prove anybody wrong. You'll be wasting your time. And me, I was like, whoa, what? I was like totally stoned, like, what just happened here? I say, okay, Ogden. You say, yes. You say, look, Jesus, this is what's going to happen. Let's say that your hypothesis is right. Which, beginning there, we don't do hypothesis testing in behavioral analysis. Okay, we do inductive research. But let's say, if your hypothesis is right, I bet you that another Jesus is going to come and find flaw in your design. Yeah. And anyway, you're not really increasing any technology, just proving the other guy wrong. So what good is that? Yeah. Okay, let's say that you're wrong, that the Stokes and Baer were right to begin with. What are they gonna do? They're gonna say, of course, Jesus, we knew it all along. Yeah. So you see, either way, Jesus, you don't win. And I was like, what? But by that time, I was thoroughly like, stoned or something like that, like a deer with these bright lights or something.
I mean,
so,
my mind is blown sitting here, you just telling me that as well. Because that's like completely a different way than a lot of us have been taught to look at things. Yes,
totally. No, differently. Yeah, differently. Basically, I mean, so I walk back to my apartment from his office. I mean, I used to live in the outskirts of the campus, and but like just walking like a zombie, So I got, then sat down, in the living room. I look at my proposal, and then I say, you know what? Ogden is right. I throw it away and put it in the trash. And I start from scratch all over again. Like, okay, so now what am I gonna do? And then, which actually turned out really well because I came out with a measurement system to measure where the children were, what aspects of stimulus were controlling the response, and to measure the discrimination and generalization by combining basically what I have learned from Barbara Etzel about stimulus control and what I have learned from Ogden about precision teaching, in particularly the skip response, that they use in the precision, because I integrated that into the assessment of stimulus control, and it turned out to be really good. So I was very happy because Ogden basically unleashed my creativity. It's like he gave me permission to be creative, because before I was, yes, doing research, but I was sort of like rule governed kind of thing. I was doing research, imitating people who were doing research, and yes, I was interested, but how to go about it, I was basically imitating everyone. So the easiest thing, how you do research, you go and read an article, find a flaw and or something, or improve it, and or a confound, and you improve the knowledge and all of that kind of thing. And what he told me, said, no, Jesus, now just go and produce whatever. Let other people disprove you or whatever, you just show them the milk, which he meant they want generalization, show them how to get it and work on that. And that's a way to prove or disprove, but and then he told me that's how behavior analysts do research, and that is called the control strategy. You have to able to deliver the goods, so to speak. And so I'm very thankful to him, because he liberated me, So now I have all kinds of freedom,
Right.
And also the other thing that both Don, Baer, and Ogden Lindsley emphasize is that research didn't need to be complex. That actually the best research was simple manipulations, not so convoluted, and simple questions, and be cumulative, go one at a time, and not to try to write the great American the great question in behavioral analysis into one experiment. Research and knowledge is cumulative. You're getting better and better and better in how to produce these results. So that was tremendous education. It was to me that, and so that was my master's thesis, my new master's thesis, and I graduated, and I went back to Mexico, and to find out that I have lost my job, that the political situation in the university has changed tremendously, and that behavior analysis in the School of Psychology basically was disappearing. Yeah. So the least that they wanted is a newly trained behavior analyst to come back to the school. So they say, sorry, your job is not here. Say, well, what do you mean I don't have a job? You guys send me here, you send me, you gave me the scholarship, and if you don't do this, I'm gonna go and complain to the National Council of Science and Technology and tell them what happened and blah blah. So since I didn't have anything to do, I spent a lot of time outside the provost office. Just I will bring my books, just read, until finally they say, okay, fine, we're gonna rehire you again. And so they rehired me, but they didn't give me any office. They gave me an assistant who was a friend of the university's, the president of the university. That he was my assistant, but not office. And they gave me this title to say, okay, you're gonna be the director or advisor of all the labs, the laboratories that we have there. It sounds cool. But they didn't give me an office kind of thing. So I made my office downtown in a coffee shop with this guy. But what they thought is that since they didn't really give me any responsibilities or anything, they thought that I was just gonna cash my my salary, go every month and do nothing, and just go and visit the labs, which I did. So I was visiting all the labs, and then, so I spent like 2 months visiting the labs, and then I came out with a proposal. So I go with the director of the School of Psychology. Okay, I have been visiting all the labs. They are running this. I think that if we do these modifications and all of this, the labs are going to be way better. The educational experience is going to be awesome. And the director was really surprised that I have come out with a proposal. Yeah, and he says, you know what? Sure, let me talk to the faculty. Say come next week and let's see. Okay, so a week passes. Say, what's up? Have you talked to the faculty? Do they like it or what? Say, no, I haven't had the chance. Come next week. Sure. Then, so I came back the next week. And then I say, so what happened, Carlos? That was the name of the director. I said, guess what, Jesus? I have great news for you. I said, what? Do they accept the proposal? Are we gonna, are we gonna start doing this? I say, no, Jesus, even better news. Better? What could be better than that? I say, look, I have a scholarship here for you to go back to the USA and do your PhD. Do you want it? And I said, sure, I want it, so I'll take it. But I took it, but I understood that I could never go back.
I like how that's how they told you to leave.
Yeah, they could have been worse, like say,
That's
at
amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
I say,
Wow.
okay.
I think that was the best firing from a job I've ever heard of. Exactly, hey, here's a scholarship. Exactly. Go get your PhD. Mm-hmm. That's impressive.
No. I was very happy that they did that, because the other alternative was they would have made my life very difficult, but probably the director was saying that maybe that I have the capabilities or even make it even more difficult for them that they will make it for me. So they were trying to figure out how can we get him to live in that. So then I finished my semester, my year there, and then I come back in the next fall, and I started my PhD. And now, since then I thought, okay, so this is different here now. So, and then by that time also, the Mexican economy was going down. It was like 25 pesos per dollar. It's like something like that, right? So I was thinking, oh my God, this is my last opportunity here. And one thing that I got to appreciate the USA was the libraries, like so much information and the books and all of that. So that's why I have so many old books, because I start collecting books and buying used books, because I thought, for me to come back to the USA is going to be difficult. So I spent a lot of time buying behavior analytic books, but all Jews and all that kind of thing, and others too, because I was thinking that this was before the internet, and it was back in 1992. Well, the 92, when did the internet started? Like 94, 95. Something like that. Like we can start email, and I mean, it was not that developed. So it wasn't that. So I wanted to have my library.
Well, and I don't blame you, because I appreciate that. I still prefer the real thing over the internet, and that's still the first thing I do whenever I move to a new city. The first thing I do after changing my address is I go and I get a library card. So first thing I do when I move to a new city. Yeah. So I also appreciate libraries and books and having that physical book. So.
Yes, definitely. No, it's totally different. So then my strategy changed. My strategy changed in the sense of say, okay, I need to stay in the United States as long as I can. I need to extend my PhD as far as I can, So I have some money. I had 3 or 4 years, I don't remember, that were paid by the scholarship. But I stayed way longer than that. Then I became, Don Baer hired me to manage one of his grants. And then we collaborated in the grants. We wrote grants together. So, and since I was a little bit more senior, I was helping him with the new students, just to, train the fundamentals, tell them where things are, running sessions, teaching reliability, things like that, So he relied a lot on that, me, and we made an awesome partnership. It was very, very nice. He and I would write together very nicely, and it was a great partnership. I really enjoyed writing my review paper, from which the cast paper comes out. One section of my review paper is about the cast. But, the orientation there was developmental, it is actually my PhD is in experimental child psychology. It's not even in behavioral analysis and that. But, everybody was doing, so like BU, Baer, and all of that, they sort of cast behavior analysis in terms of development, which I'm very happy, because, I think that development, biology, behavior analysis, all of that, is our subject matter, They call it human development, but, it's applied behavior analysis. That's what applied behavior analysis should be, to use all these principles and to create a technology to live better and solve problems and all that. So I was having lots of fun, and I did lots of research.
Well, and either you're still working on that PhD, or you found a way to stay, because
yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. So I have several projects, and then at that time, sometime in 92, 93, a student from North Texas came to study with Don, and she told Sigrid Glenn about me. And then Sigrid Glenn, it was interesting. I met her in Guadalajara. She came to one of my talks, and showing what I was doing with Baer, and since then, she tried to hire me to come to UNT. She said, Jesus, you should come to UNT. We'll hire you. And I talked to Don about it. Baer didn't want me to go to come to UNT. He would say to me, he wanted me, at that time, there was opportunities in Georgia Tech, and they wanted me, he wanted me to, but I didn't want it because it was in education and special ed, and I didn't want to go that, because by that time, I still, like now is my interest is all diversified, but really what happened to me in KU was that I became a researcher, and I was start making no difference in populations, and just knowing that whatever I learn from my research is going to be helpful for children with developmental disabilities too. And so in that sense, I became more diversified, in what I do. But I spent at KU, I spent a lot of time with preschool children, doing research with developmental, some with autism, but not much. Then only about stimulus control, studying over selectivity, and so anyway, so Sigurd Glenn, come, Jesus, come. It took 2 years until finally I have and Don Baer basically say, no, Jesus, don't go. And they say, why don't you want me to go to there? And he will say to me, you're not going to have children. And I didn't understand what he meant by you're not going to have children. But what he meant was you're not going to have PhD students, which meant, so if I wasn't going to have children, that meant that he wasn't going to have grandchildren either. So
that is like the cutest thing I've ever heard.
And then,
he wants you to continue his line.
Little line there to say, you're not going to have children. Okay. And then at that time, what inspired me, well, two things inspired me to come to UNT. One's that I had a talk with Sigrid, and she told me the plan. Say, Jesus, we have the opportunity to have the first department of behavioral analysis in the whole world, and and she painted to me, and it really attracted me. Her vision attracted me a lot. And at that time, Alan Neuringer had visited KU, and I was fascinated by what a creative research. Actually, and he was also showing about creativity and self-experimentation. So I thought, well, Alan Neuringer, he only has undergrad students, and he is able to do all these things. I'm sure I'm going to be able to do very cool things with just master students, So I decided to come to UNT, and then so I stay here. So I say, well, at least this is closer to Mexico, closer to my hometown, because at least it's Texas. From Texas to Mexico is way closer. So.
Well, and I mean, you helped bring UNT to what it is today as well. Mm-hmm. UNT is one of the best known programs in the world.
Mm-hmm. So, yes.
And you're doing some absolutely amazing, you and your colleagues are doing some absolutely amazing things at UNT as well. So,
and reflecting on that, I look at my career and I say, this was a good accident, because UNT, if I have gone, it's small, it's small. So the pressure for having grants and that research, it wasn't that much. I mean, there was there, but not really. Like if I have gone to a more established university and all of that, I will have totally grant. And here, I could do research even without money, with the students, and I could choose whatever problem or whatever thing I was interested in behavioral analysis. I will choose it, and it will cost nothing, I mean, not cost. Like if I was, no, I have to produce data here, I have to do this grant, I have to follow this line, that will have, how can I say, limit my research or my visions or my all of that. So in that sense, I think that it was good that I came to a small university, because it also provide the freedom that I like. And I have been, as you say, I have been able to accomplish a lot here at UNT, and also all my colleagues and the community is amazing. It is pretty good. And now we have sort of a PhD. So I actually, last year, I had my first PhD student. I've been working with her, and I'm very happy with her. So I'm not accepting, I mean, maybe later on I'll accept more, but I'm been consulting with her. I accepted her because I'm been consulting with her for like 3 years in a school for children with autism. So she knows my ways. So now we are, just basically doing research on autism. What she's doing, and I'm helping her. But I have at least the first one. So at least I'm gonna have. No, actually, that is not true, because I co-advised it to PhD students, but they were behavioral analysts, but they were to information science, and they wanted to do something information science and behavioral analysis. So I was their co-advisor. They have an advisor in information science and me, so to bring behavioral analysis into information science.
Well, there you go. You had your children.
Yes.
You're currently having your children. You got them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and one thing too to mention is that UNT has one of the only cultural behavior science programs that's approved by ABAI as well. And because of all of the different things that are going on at UNT. And I know that from some of the students I've had who have come from UNT, they talk a lot about you and the things that you're doing.
Thank you for listening to Thought Leaders. Come back next month as we continue our talk with Dr. Jesus Rosales-Ruiz as he tells us where he sees the field going. And as always, if you have questions, comments, feedback, or suggestions, please feel free to reach out to us at Operant Innovations@abatechnologies.com.